Thank you very much. To set the stage, digital influences all areas of procurement and supply chain, both the tangible and the intangible, including negotiations with suppliers, shipping, logistics, and all the value chain associated with the supply chain lifecycle. So, digital procurement and digital supply chain transformation is going to have many meanings depending on where you are on your journey. For some companies, it's going to be as simple as replacing paper and manual processes with digital data and process support. For some companies, it means using autonomous mobile robots and other forms of robotics in their supply chain. And for some, it means applying machine learning or artificial intelligence to supply chain big data. And for some, it means getting better digital data to support the end-to-end supply chain involving multiple tiers of the company's supply chain. So depending on the maturity of your organization, depending on whether you're a direct or an indirect organization, it's going to have an impact on what you're trying to do. So as we get started, all of these digital transformation technologies are very disruptive technologies, and they are driving change. So you can either be in charge of that change or you can be dragged along with that change. But make no mistake, there's going to be change. So, as companies are looking at what this means to them, it's generally agreed that this digital revolution is really being spurred on by various disruptive technologies, as you can kind of see here. Whether it's big data analytics, whether it's cloud, whether it's artificial intelligence or Internet of Things, whether it's the blockchain, or various, even virtual reality or augmented reality, and yes, even 3D printing, amongst others, are really what are driving. And as the world comes to grips with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen the next wave of change for procurement and supply chain has been kind of thrust upon us, right? This time around, the shift towards digital transformation through these disruptive technologies enables companies to manage through uncertainty and to ensure business continuity, very key, while simultaneously building new capabilities and ways of working that deliver exponential value to customers, partners, and ultimately the shareholders. So make no mistake, a major technological inflection point is upon us. Digital influences all areas of supply chain, and as we're going through this and we think about some of what we have here, AI, blockchain, the Internet of Things are transforming how we interact with technology, and they're converging to form, autonomous procurement tools that will run the entire procure-to-pay process, including generating smart contracts. Data input and classifications will become much more accurate when intelligent systems start transactions independently employing a common taxonomy. There is a potential for AI and blockchain to track contract compliance in real time, a feat nearly impossible for yesterday's archaic contract management systems. Blockchain allows companies to use data, ensuring more traceable and transparent supply chains, and is a good solution for preventing counterfeiting. AI and ML are used in decision support for everything from obsolete inventory management to managing and helping with returns, with shipping. Robotics and automation, autonomous operations are reducing everyday tasks within the supply chain operations. And what this is going to do is it's going to streamline and reduce human errors. It's going to reduce risks. It's going to improve speed and accuracy of the transaction. So automation and information transparency continues to expand, especially in categories where companies have economic leverage to force their suppliers to adopt these new technologies, and vice versa. It is driving change across the industries and improving opportunities for our profession. It will disrupt the way things are being done going forward. We need to embrace these transformation technologies. And if we succeed, we're really going to be monumentally changing, the way our supply chains operate. So when you think about it, we must communicate boldly the why now vision to our procurement and supply chain teams. We must share, the implications of staying with the status quo and not evolving with technology. We cannot act like the dinosaurs. We all know what happened to them. That story didn't end well. We must ignite excitement about new opportunities that technology can bring to our clients and to our suppliers and ultimately to our shareholders. You know, we must educate our teams on how to shift to more strategic roles, mindsets, and skills. You know, creating value through building new and reinforcing relationships while existing suppliers, stakeholders, and new innovative startups. We need to enable procurement and supply chain teams to divert resources and time to focus on finding cost-saving opportunities, building strategic relationships, and finding that next new breakthrough. We need to organize workshops to empower business stakeholders to be inclusive and part of this journey. We need to invite these key business partners, turn them into evangelists. We need to really look at creating proof of concepts before we go full bang, and we need to be able to get these folks to speak up as we're going through these engagement workshops with their teams and our teams. We need to brainstorm, we need to challenge what our current processes are like with broader stakeholders, and then introduce solutions with a guided hands-on experience. It's really critical that this is a joint operation. Before we used to impose these things upon them, now we need to go through as partners. Therefore, we got to hardwire our digital technologies into your workflows, right? Identify opportunities to streamline any existing workflows that you use today for sourcing or supply chain purposes. Processes is really what's going to drive the long-term sustainability of whatever transformation you have. So you need to empower users to access transformational tools directly from the supply chain portals, and delivering a frictionless experience. That's absolutely critical, that it's easy for them to use and intuitive. That goes to the user experience. We need to emphasize the self-serve message across all our communications. We need to push the message that supply chain and procurement are transforming and offering innovative solutions that keep the business users' interest at the center. Can't be forced on them, it needs to be with them in the center. We need to roll out engaging onboarding content and communications provided by, whether it's marketing, whether it's your various suppliers, and various formats. It might be small videos, it might be newsletters, it might be small group forums, but we've got to make sure that user experience is being viewed. And we need to be recognized as change agents. And then we need to further then create evangelists, right? We need to set clear goals and drive adoption for our business users. We need to host sharing sessions to gather feedback from our users once significant milestones are reached and recognize them accordingly. And reward the risk takers as we drive towards the new horizons of the digital transformation. This is really important, that you make sure that both within the business and within your organization, you're going to have those risk takers that are wanting to be front and center. Reward them, because I think it's absolutely critical that you're able to ensure that people understand that it's okay to fail, it's okay to make changes, and you want to have these people that are willing to take these risks. So, we need to really act upon the following areas when you start to think about this. You're going to recognize, you're going to prioritize, you're going to embrace, transform, and demonstrate. But the internal stakeholders have always demanded greater autonomy, self-service, and agility, and sheer speed. And most enterprises have not accounted for this in their strategies. Or simply, we can't execute on this using historically developed methods and technologies. For too long, our supply chain and procurement teams have worked within established models, processes, and technologies, and we've imposed these upon our internal customers. So you got to think about that. Organizations have really put relatively long, complex processes into our systems of record. That's it, systems of record, right? These have really not helped the internal stakeholders. They want to actually understand how they can be utilized. So, we've got to act upon this. We've got to recognize the internal customer expectations, have continued to evolve and become more demanding. Business users expect their work to be enabled so that it is much closer to the way their private lives are as consumers, right? They want things to be self-serve, easy, fast, and they want to get what they need via intelligent database guidance, whether it's the driver of is the pandemic, whether the driver is essentially a recession like we saw back in 2009, a boom, or the emergence of a multi-generational workforce. We cannot sit back and watch the profession. We need to be driving the profession for both procurement and supply chain professionals. We have to prioritize the consumerization, internal customer buying experience and what that entails. Well, achieving better outcomes measured by traditional metrics. This means not only creating a consumerized user interface, but also making it easy for business users to quickly get what they need. In turn, it means moving beyond the limitations of legacy processes and technologies. That's really critical because people get used to doing things the old way. We have to be able to break those norms and provide the art of the possible. We've got to embrace augmented intelligence, whether the platforms are AI, ML, chatbots, we've got to put them to work, right? It can not only upgrade the business user experience and guide users to what they need, but it also increases the levels of analysis. It reduces the procurement supply chain workloads, allowing both internal stakeholders and our practitioners to get more important work done. Embrace these things. They're really there for a purpose, which then leads us to transform. Talent and organization models address current requirements and technological realities, right? A procurement and supply chain will need to expand beyond its traditional organizational models. Our organizational models have been really focused on the management of suppliers, driving transactions, compliance, and cost. So now we're going to need to really identify new core competencies, such as relationship management, consulting, category strategies, supplier innovation. It means recognizing that the best talent may not come from the traditional functional benches that we look like, but we may have to look at sales organizations, R&D groups, even strategy teams to bring them in if we're going to really succeed. Because we have to really demonstrate a willingness and ability to drive and enact change. So supply chain and procurement have been in a procedural role, narrowly focused on tactical sets of responsibilities. Not true leaders in optimizing business processes. They're kind of that back office function that you need something and then they argue with you and they never give you what you want when you want. That's got to change, right? So historically, we've not been true leaders in optimizing business process. That is really critical, that mindset change, that they think about what we're doing. With the need for digitalization, we must embrace different strategies and tactics. We must accept a design thinking mindset that comes from digitally solving business problems from business stakeholders' perspective, both internal and external. So we look at it backwards into the procurement and supply chain to see how we can actually work. We need to become more entrepreneurial, exhibiting a willingness to explore truly cutting edge digital technologies that will transform the future of procurement in our profession. We can't always just think, well, I already have a source to pay tool. I already have an ERP system. That's interesting. Let's be challenging ourselves to see, can we do negotiations with chatbots on our tail spend? And if we can do that, is that going to give us an advantage and allow our category managers and our strategic sourcing professionals and our supply chain partners to be able to be much more effective in what they're doing going up the value chain? So this is all really important that we kind of think about this. Strategy turned into a digital procurement transformation context. Really, what are we doing here, right? Well, you got to think about that strategy and that mission, right? And through that, you're thinking of that customer experience. Focus on the value visible to customers and challenge all non-value adding activities in your process. When you think about people and culture, right? Role model values, inspire others to succeed and work in a customer-centric mindset. The disruption and the digitalization, develop benchmarks and intelligence capabilities to be clients' eyes and ears in the market. You need to be bringing them that next solution that's going to help them in whatever their process is as they're interacting with clients. It's really important that we are the eyes and the ears of the organization, helping to bring these new inroads that are going to ultimately help our shareholders. Communication is key. You cannot over communicate. We need to tell them via multi-channels and continually reinforce the messages related to the transformation. Years ago, I was in the Army, and they used to tell us, tell them what they're going to do it, and then tell them why they did it, and then tell them again. You just got to drive that message home. So supporting digitization, we must develop the necessary capabilities to build compelling digital offerings. That means partnering with universities. That means going to conferences such as this so we can learn, what's new. We need to continue to drive for leadership in the digitization and disruption. So, if you're not out there attending conferences, if you're not out there, reading white papers or interacting with the strategy houses, you guys are going to fall behind. You need to learn, from new competition and other players outside the industry. Take a look at, if you're in financial services, it may make sense for you to look at what's going on in manufacturing, what's going on in the chip industry, because you can learn and glean insights that are going to help you and support your digital journey. Process optimization is crucial, right? So it's crucial to the transformation efforts, and the use of Lean, Six Sigma, and Agile methodologies will help to deliver the results for you to be successful. You got to remember, if you don't optimize your process, you're just going to make a bad process faster. Results aren't going to change. You've got to be really thinking about that and thinking about how you're going to change that. In procurement and supply chain, our contributions, we need to develop the capabilities and build a compelling digital offering. We need to increase the usage of the digital platforms everywhere possible. We need to provide ideas for digital solutions and seek them from entrepreneurs, universities, innovation labs. We need to be flexible and agile to support the development of digital solutions. This is an integral part of all of our businesses. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. We need to think about, how do we simplify our terms and conditions so that we're managing the risk but allowing for us to have the speed. And we need to think about the implementation of various engagement models based on the level of risk, based on the category and the maturity of what you're doing. You need to establish an innovation team or an implementation partner, and really start thinking about, how do you actually think about innovation? How do you reward innovation from your suppliers, right? So your contribution is an integral part to every part of this digital transformation journey. So, when we start thinking about what is the impact going to be, when we take a look off to the right and we see all of these new disruptive technologies that are interacting, the impact to companies will be different, again, based on adoption and scale of each of the respective transformations that you're doing. So the goal should be for a fully integrated digital supply chain, enabling an end-to-end transparency, collaboration, supported by a cognitive analytics, delivering agility, scalability, and greatly improving your customer experience. Don't forget, if you optimize everything, but you forget that customer experience, you failed. So the decision lifecycle will be impacted end-to-end through real-time performance monitoring, improved predictive analytics, the ability for real-time process management, as real-time data is available, ensuring decisions can be made accurately and in real time. The impact result should be a no-touch supply management, delivering, algorithmic-based demand planning, delivering on improved customer satisfaction, and this will lead to improved profits. At the end of the day, if we're not doing this ultimately for our shareholders to have more value in our earnings per share, we've missed the boat. It's absolutely critical that whatever investment you're doing actually is traceable ultimately to what you're going to be delivering to your shareholders. So, when I start thinking about some of the thoughts here, digital procurement and supply chain innovation is all about being proactive, customer and stakeholder oriented, delivering on an organization's ability to leverage digital technologies, resulting in a dramatically improving operations and performance, resulting in a sustainable digital transformation success. Okay, so digital transformation will be a success when we've clearly articulated the digital agenda, where shared priorities with clear targets, we've put in place the governance structures that reflects on the goals that we're talking about. It's critical that this be governed. You know, we have a distributed digital culture across the organization. It's not going to be good enough just to be in procurement or in supply chain. It has to actually go across the entire ecosystem. And if you can't do that, you failed, right? Business objectives need to be aligned with the key levers with clear accountability, up and down, you know, speed and execution of the end-to-end process transformation aligned with the customer journey of simplification. This is absolutely critical. So, you know, you got to remember that it's impractical for an organization to implement the digital transformation entirely comprised of technologies, you know, whether those are bots, ML, AI, etc., that all but remove what I like to term as carbon-based life forms, i.e. humans, you know, from the value chain. So our professionals and our profession remain and will remain a people-first, people-driven function, you know, where knowledge workers leverage smart digital technologies to enhance processes, user interfaces, and user experiences. Finally, know that the goal of digital transformation extends beyond baseline efficiency and effectiveness gains to enable our teams, our stakeholders, and customers to discover and scale and improve satisfaction along the value chain, which ultimately is going to drive a lot of the work that we have. So, you know, I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions that hopefully this will make your success in your respective transformation journeys. You know, the first question I want you to be thinking about before we finish is, what are your biggest challenges within your company or your department impacting your digital transformation journey? You know, you got to think about that, and you've got to know that, and you've got to have an answer for that. You know, so what are you doing to overcome these challenges? Secondly, what would you consider to be the biggest opportunity within your company to make your digital transformation a reality? It may not actually be within your department. There may be something that's upstream or downstream from you. So we got to think about that. So, you know, I want to salute you and wish you the best in your transformation journeys. And I know that I'd be happy to connect with any of you if you want to talk. We'll be providing you with my contact information. And, you know, now I'm going to push it back to Emily. And Emily, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then if not, we can then open up the session to questions at the broader audience. Thank you for your time.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Joseph. And I mean, wow, what an amazing presentation. I'm sure everyone got some great value and insights out of that. And yeah, you're right. We're going to shift into a small Q&A session just off of the back of the insights that you just shared with us. So I'm wondering if you could kind of tell us about your most recent transformation project and give us an example of the digital technologies that were used here.
Absolutely. I recently went through the implementation of a contract lifecycle management tool that had ML, machine learning, it had AI. It also had some other sub technologies like blockchain. And this was really important for us because we were moving from an end of life system. We were moving forward with a new process, and we actually established a new team to make sure that as we were looking at the contract lifecycle management, we were porting over, you know, literally tens of thousands of contracts. We were digitizing them, extracting the metadata from them, using this so that we would actually have a better understanding of what the obligations management was on either side. Now, this was really important because then that allowed us to start doing actually supplier audits and actually kind of like a 360 view of that supplier relationship. And in doing so, as we started down the journey, you know, it did everything from authoring, repository, and deep supplier management. And as we did that, what we actually were able to do was to actually, in a sense, self-fund, because we were able to go back to multiple suppliers and to recoup tens of millions of dollars. When we went through and we actually did the supplier management, you know, that obligation tracking is critical. Now, this didn't happen overnight. This took, you know, literally months for us to put into place. It required us to ensure that we had the right level of taxonomy that was built in, so that we would have the visibility across all of the contracts, all of the suppliers, making sure that we had parent-child relationships that were clearly established and delineated. And all of this enabled us to actually then have a more productive and useful program that also helped us with our third-party risk management.
Amazing. And kind of a topic that I'm sure you've spoken about a lot and is prevalent in the supply chain industry right now is still COVID. I'm kind of wondering if you could share with us what you think the biggest challenges have been over the past year that have directly affected digital transformation in the supply chain and procurement industry.
I think the first thing that I would say from a pandemic perspective is that it forced a reawakening and a rethinking of what the art of the possible is. When you think about what happened before, if you were going to go through a digital transformation, that in many instances was going to require you to use an integrator, a consulting firm, professional services firm. And all of those you were used to controlling them in your four walls, bringing them on site. And I think part of that was really, in the old way of doing businesses, it was really a lack of trust, or the fact that you felt like you honestly had to have your people there, watching them, interacting with them. Well, when the pandemic hit, that changed everything. All of a sudden, you saw that things accelerated from a digital transformation perspective. So all of a sudden, now people were working from home. Now, you got to think about it from a business continuity perspective. Historically, there was a business continuity site somewhere where everybody would go to in an event. Well, with this kind of pandemic, when nobody could go to the site because everybody had to be dispersed, that really started to kind of get people to think about what the art of the possible was. And I think from a board and an executive level, that changed the mindset and opened the aperture relative to how they were going to be able to actually support digital transformation. Because all of a sudden it was, how do we make sure that we have enough infrastructure with the CIO? How do I make sure that I have the adequate supply coming in from the CPO? And how do I make sure that everything that we're doing enables us to continue to run our business? So
Amazing.
I think that monumental shift of mindset is really what helped us.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, thank you so much, Joseph. It's been extremely insightful, and we can only thank you for your presentation today. So if you have any final words, anything else you'd like to say, please, now is your time.
First off, I'd like to tell everybody that, embrace change, think of the art of the possible, and drive fast and forward. And make sure that if you're driving through these processes, that you're willing to misstep, you're willing to have mistakes. Because if you aren't making mistakes and you're not feeling uncomfortable, you're actually not doing change. And you've got to make sure that you got to think through that which almost sounded like it was science fiction 10, 15 years ago. You've got to look at it today. I mentioned very earlier in my conversation about negotiations with chatbots and AI. The day is coming when we are going to have negotiations, and I think it'll start with a tailspin, where this is done completely without human beings. We are basically going to have an interaction with a chatbot that is going to actually have an intelligent brain behind it that's going to enable it to actually go through and drive things. And there are companies out there that are doing this today. I would call it like the 1.0, but I'd say within the next 5 years, this is going to be the norm. So embrace it now, seek it out. This is really kind of what that next opportunity is.